Hey there, future English educators. Ready to flip the script on some conventional wisdom about language teaching?
I'm ready. What are we diving into today?
Today's deep dive takes us into a fascinating academic paper called Native Speakers, English and ELT, Changing Perspectives.
Ooh, sounds intriguing.
It is. Buckle up, because we're about to challenge some big assumptions about what it means to be a native speaker.
You know, it's really interesting to consider how loaded the term native speaker actually is.
Isn't it?
I bet many of us have maybe even unconsciously thought of someone's English as being better simply because they were a native speaker.
Absolutely. Like, oh, they're a natural... As if speaking English fluently is some magical skill you're born with.
Right.
But this paper dives straight into how that whole idea of inherent language superiority is actually a myth.
Yeah, and a potentially harmful one at that.
Totally.
It reminds me of how we sometimes view native plants as inherently good and invasive species as bad.
Interesting comparison.
This paper made me realize that same kind of thinking can creep into how we view language.
Oh, I see what you mean.
We put native speakers on a pedestal without even questioning it. But here's the thing. This paper completely dismantles that notion.
How so?
It argues that with English being spoken by so many people from diverse backgrounds all over the world, the idea that only native speakers truly understand the language just doesn't hold water.
It's like we're clinging to this outdated map while the landscape of English has completely transformed.
Exactly.
I mean, think about the sheer number of people who speak English globally now. It's mind-blowing.
I know, right?
This isn't your grandmother's English class anymore. We're talking about world Englishes. English as a lingua franca. It's a whole new world.
Exactly. And this is where things get really exciting for you as a future teacher.
Oh.
Because this paper doesn't just point out the flaws in that old way of thinking. It offers a new framework, a new lens for understanding who owns English in today's world.
And that's where this whole concept of the L2 user comes in, right?
Yeah. Precisely. Now, before you think this is some overly technical jargon, it's actually quite simple.
Okay, good to know.
An L2 user is simply someone who confidently uses English to communicate in the real world, regardless of their accent or background.
So it's about actual communication, not just sounding a certain way.
Yes. It's a shift from chasing this often unattainable idea of native-like fluency to empowering learners to embrace their own unique voices in English. And that's such a liberating message for language learners, isn't it?
It really is.
It takes the pressure off striving for some idealized native accent and allows them to focus on what truly matters. Communicating effectively.
Like a breath of fresh air.
Right.
And speaking of fresh approaches, this paper also dives into how embracing multilingualism can actually enhance language learning.
Definitely.
It's a far cry from those English-only classrooms I remember, where we were practically penalized for speaking our native languages.
I know what you mean. But this paper turns that old approach on its head. It argues that instead of treating other languages as obstacles, we should view them as valuable resources. After all, when you think about how languages interact and influence each other, it opens up a world of possibilities for learning.
So knowing multiple languages can actually give you a leg up when it comes to understanding grammar and sentence structure, even in English.
Absolutely. And this paper even talks about the idea of translanguaging.
Translanguaging?
Yeah,
Oh,
which might sound a bit intimidating, but it's actually quite fascinating.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this translanguaging idea.
It's about recognizing that our students' full linguistic repertoires are assets, not deficits. Imagine a student is struggling to explain a concept in English.
Okay.
With translanguaging, you could encourage them to use their native language to bridge that gap and deepen their understanding.
Wow. I never thought about it that way. It's like
Yeah.
we're finally recognizing the value of linguistic diversity, not just in our students, but in ourselves as teachers too.
Right.
This whole conversation has me thinking about teacher identity, especially for those future EFL teachers out there who aren't native English speakers themselves.
Yeah.
How does all of this make you feel?
That's such an important question. This shift in perspective can be particularly powerful for non-native EFL teachers.
I imagine.
It's easy to internalize that native speaker ideal and feel a sense of imposter syndrome. But this paper encourages a powerful reframe.
So instead of seeing your background as a disadvantage, you can embrace it as a strength.
Exactly. Think about it. Your own experiences as an L2 user provide invaluable insights for your students.
Oh, that's true.
You understand the challenges they face, and you can offer practical strategies for success, all while being a living testament to the power of language learning.
You're living proof that it is possible to achieve communicative competence in a second language. That's incredibly motivating for your students to see.
For sure.
This whole conversation has me feeling incredibly optimistic about the future of EFL teaching. It feels like we're moving towards a more inclusive and dynamic approach to language education.
I agree. And this paper really highlights that need to move away from a narrow view of language in teaching.
How so?
It's an invitation to be more open, more aware, and to embrace the incredible diversity of English language users worldwide.
It's about giving ourselves permission to redefine what it means to be a successful English speaker and a successful English teacher.
And it's more than just permission, it's about action. This paper provides a framework for making that happen.
In what way?
It challenges us to critically examine the materials we use, the methods we employ, and even the assumptions we might unknowingly bring into the classroom.
It's like we're being handed the tools to build a more inclusive and representative approach to English language teaching brick by brick.
And what an exciting time to be building those foundations, especially for you as someone preparing to enter this field.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You have the opportunity to help shape the future of EFL teaching.
You're right. It's inspiring to think about. This paper has me brimming with ideas about how I can bring this awareness into my own teaching. I love the idea of fostering a love of language in all its diversity and helping students find their own unique voices in English.
Beautifully put. And remember, this deep dive is just the tip of the iceberg.
I imagine there's a lot more to learn.
Oh, absolutely. There's a whole world of research and perspectives out there waiting to be explored.
The paper actually mentions several resources for further reading, which I'm adding to my list immediately.
Yeah, keep learning.
This whole conversation has shown me just how important it is to keep questioning those old assumptions about native speakers and embrace the vibrant, dynamic nature of English. It's an ongoing conversation and one that I'm eager to be a part of.
That's the key. It's not about having all the answers right now, but about staying curious, asking questions, and being open to new ways of thinking about language and learning.
So as future EFL teachers, our responsibility isn't just to teach English, but to teach it in a way that reflects the realities of our globalized world.
Exactly. It's about equipping our students with the skills and confidence to navigate a world where English is spoken in countless ways. A world where effective communication is the bridge between cultures and perspectives. And who knows, maybe you'll be the one writing the next groundbreaking paper, challenging old assumptions and inspiring a new generation of EFL teachers.
You never know. This whole conversation has been so eye-opening and empowering. If you're listening out there and feeling even a little bit of that spark, hold on to it. Keep exploring, keep learning, and never lose that passion for language and the amazing things it allows us to achieve.